I want you to get together.
You know that looks absolutely insane. You tell you, oh, it's just water, that grooved it away, and you look at it, it's like, no, that is electricity. That
I went.
is pure
I went.
electricity.
I just went there over in November, and yeah, it's just like it really does take your breath away when you look at it because you're just like I don't know what happened. It was something I was doing videos about the Hoover Dam, and I was like going out west, and I was looking at some Anasazi stuff, and that's when I first started like really becoming fascinated with like all the you know the legends of like the Egyptian stuff, and then just looking at all the rock formations, and that's when I was like before I even like considered this whole short season topic, I was just like something happened here. Like I could just tell, like I don't know what it is. I don't know if this was like potentially some kind of ancient nuclear, nuclear tech or something, or this was the wrath of God. Because it's like, but I instinctively knew it. It's just kind of funny, just finally, meeting up with Vitali, and then us kind of like it's like the converging things of all the things I was like looking at. I'm like, wait a minute, this all fits together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've heard loads of like theories in the past trying to explain these things. And the electromagnetic universe theory was a big one. I don't know if you've ever heard about that. It was called Symbols of an Alien Sky by a group called the Thunderbolts Project. And they had like a worldview where in the ancient past, the planets were much closer to Earth than they are today.
Uh huh.
And Saturn, Mars, and Venus had made an alignment very close to Earth, which caused an electromagnetic explosive event which
Okay.
shook the earth and created huge arcs of scarring all over the earth, which people saw these strange electrical phenomena shapes in the sky. And he goes through all the rock paintings of the shapes people have drawn and he
Oh
compares them
wow.
to electrical phenomena. And it says it's identical to how electricity forms these shapes in like certain like vacuums and things. So he's saying that people witnessed this happen in the past and they drew it on rock art. And I said, I'm not sure I buy it because obviously that questions a lot of other things like the
Mm-hmm.
validity of the heliocentric model and all these type of things or what. But they talk about the golden age of the past where Saturn ruled the sky and was the sun, and it's like,
Oh yeah, it was the original Sun.
yeah, exactly, so it's based on all that concept. But that being said, put that to one side, this idea that the Grand Canyon was formed by basically arcs of electricity just whipping the ground really fast and just tearing it apart, was
It
always
makes
always stuck in my mind. And then this theory comes along, and I'm thinking, well, could this be the wrath of God at tribulation? If America perhaps is the actual true place a lot of this stuff really went down, if it wasn't the Middle East, and couldn't,
what's
yeah, but
what's crazy is was I saying that I've looked into this, and I one time I got a little sick to my stomach because I was looking at researching Saturn. And have you ever noticed the parallels between Saturn and our God?
which well, enlighten me, what have you noticed?
Well, I was noticing, of course, you think about for one, what's Saturday? Saturn's day. Saturday, what day's God's day would be Saturday, would be the
Yeah,
Sabbath, right? And then also there's like Saturn's depicted as like Father Time, right? Like the Ancient of Days. He looks real old. He's
yeah.
also depicted as having the Reaper. He's got the whatever.
The
Okay,
scythe.
yeah, the
Yeah.
scythe. He's got the scythe, and it's kind of like so. Just think about in Revelation where it's like God is telling the angel to go reap.
Hmm.
If you think about it, Saturn's the god of time. Who created time?
It's
Who
Kronos. Well, Kronos is that the Roman version of the
Right.
Greek.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I think. Yeah. I want to say Kronos might be.
It's
Yeah.
one of
I think Kronos is the Greek version.
it's one of the two, isn't it? I know what you mean
Right.
because Rome is Saturn,
Yeah.
Kronos is
Yeah.
Greek.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Saturnalia. Saturn. But
Yeah.
yeah. So our God created time, right?
Hmm.
So and then there's also like the Saturn is a god of agriculture. So like he's the god of the harvest.
Hmm.
And just think about all the verses in the Bible that's all about the wheat and the reaping and
Hmm.
in the harvest. And it's like I was like almost like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of there. And he's like associated as being the old God.
Hmm.
It's almost like even that kind of idea of almost like there was a God before, but now Jupiter is the new God.
Yeah. Well, Gary Wayne was talking about this, the father gods versus the new gods, and how there was a
Mm.
strange transition at some point, in
Yeah.
history, where, like I said, Zeus took over from the old gods and his pantheon had a war with the old gods, and
Hmm.
became the new takeover gods. And I'm not sure what time zone he placed that in himself or when that happened, but throughout history you've got, like I said, the old god, the original OG gods, which were cruel and evil and suppressive to all of mankind in some way and
Hmm.
subjugated them. And then the new pantheon came and defeated the old and created the new world out of the remains of the. I think it's the same thing in Norse mythology, how like Odin, or Thor, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
They
yeah.
could
Yeah, I think they
they
both usurp. They usurped from somebody
I
else.
think they cut up the body of a giant called Ymir or something
Hmm.
like that, and from the remains and the blood of that giant corpse, they created the Earth or something.
You know
Yeah.
what's interesting? I think that Saturn is similar in that where he's like he's part of the create. Like I think he might actually be a creator too, where like he created the Earth, and part of like his body is like is
Hmm.
is parts of the Earth. I mean,
Yeah,
so
oh,
again,
yeah.
so like so he's also the creator of the Earth, and it's like I think where a lot of that stuff comes from, the old gods and new gods. I think it's likely that the old gods are in Tartarus. Like our God put them in Tartarus,
Hmm.
and then the new gods have taken credit for doing that because they don't
Yeah.
because obviously they couldn't say that the real God actually put them chained them up. They have
Hmm.
to you know put the glory on themselves as they defeated them.
Oh,
And yeah,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
you have the old pantheon, which would obviously probably be like the Watchers, would be like Azazel and Shimyaza and all the worst Watchers. Those were probably
Well,
associated with
they would
all
have been the
these.
ones that actually mixed themselves with humanity originally and created the Nephilim, probably, because
Oh yeah,
they're the ones that
definitely.
get bound in chains, aren't they, and punished for that. But there was
Yeah,
still
so that's
plenty
what I
of,
mean. So,
yeah,
so, so they're in Tartarus
yeah.
because of what they did. But yeah, like so in the twisted version of it, it's like no, Jupiter defeated them.
Hmm.
And then now
Yeah.
he's what's crazy is I was thinking about making a video today because I was just like, what the heck? And I was watching have you ever watched the Justice League movie, like the Snyder cut?
I've not. No, no.
I'll have to send you this clip because it's interesting, and I need to send it to Vitali. So, so Thanos in like the Marvel series, there's like in DC, there's Dark Side.
Hmm.
And so it's real crazy. So they show this battle, like Wonder Woman's discussing like an ancient time where there was this huge battle, and so Darkseid comes and he's literally fighting like the Amazons, the Atlanteans. He's fighting Zeus and Ares, and I mean, it looks like something antediluvian, like Lord of the Rings. Like there's this battle, and of course, Darkseid represents our god. But it's interesting. He comes down and he's got this like axe or something. I don't know if it's an axe or it's like some kind of rod of iron probably.
Mm,
And he
yeah.
and he and he literally chops it into the ground, and as soon as he does, like it's not quite a Lichtenberg figure, but like all these designs get shot out, and it's literally the whole place catches fire. And
Yeah.
it like I mean I was thinking like, oh my gosh, like after making the connections with what Vitaly was saying, I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds like they're saying something without saying it right there.
Absolutely. I mean, an old trick I think they played as well is because God did exist and always has existed, they've
Mm.
always created in their own pantheons an image of a creator God that's evil. So I think, for
Yeah.
example,
Mm.
in the I think it's the Epic of Gilgamesh. I can't remember if it's the Akkadian version or if it's the Sumerian version, but they have Enki and Enlil. Okay, and basically, I think Enlil is God by biblical standard,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
Enki
Say
Is
yeah.
Satan or
Mm-hmm.
Lucifer, who is the
Mm.
savior of mankind, who goes and saves Zuazudra by telling him to make a boat because God's angry and he's going
Mm-hmm.
to flood the place. So the savior is Enlil in that story, and God is an evil, cruel dictator who. And get
Yeah.
this, get this. The reason this is how bad it is. Okay, so the reason Enlil was upset and wanted to flood all of the earth is because humans were being too loud and he couldn't
Oh yeah, that's I have heard that one. Yeah,
and
that's
he couldn't get to sleep. And that's it. It's kind of like
yeah.
that's like the pettiest reason to flood an entire, you know,
I mean,
humanity.
he was really upset.
He
No,
just
that's great.
he just wanted a nap, and so he thought, yeah, just flood the earth because I'm tired of hearing them. I want to sleep. And it's like they tried to make God out to be the worst, most pettiest tyrant ever with these myths. I think that all came after the flood and everything to try and just destroy an image of a good, loving God. So I think that's like Saturn, for example. It's just it's like a bastardized version of
Well,
God, you
it
know.
could be. Like I said, I think it's just there's a lot of weird parallels, but obviously there's also parallels. I think with like Uranus, which obviously like based on our language is like it's the butt of everyone's joke. I mean, like no pun intended.
Mm,
And so like what I because I want to say that isn't Saturn and Jupiter are supposed to be brothers, I believe, but like Saturn is the one who castrated his father, and you're thinking like, well, that sounds like
hmm
you know
Didn't
again like
wasn't it Saturn who then ate his own children? Is that right?
um well, yeah, you know what?
There's that famous
It's
painting, isn't
wait a
there? Where
minute.
he's
Actually, maybe is Jupiter? Yeah, is Jupiter the son of Saturn? I think maybe he is because yeah, because I think it was like there was some kind of way that he escaped getting eaten,
yeah.
and then eventually he usurped his father.
There's that famous painting which shows an old man with a staff
Yes,
literally
yes,
biting into the chest of a baby,
yes, yeah.
and
That's
yeah.
correct. Saturn, yes, Saturn, obviously a really good guy. But I mean
Yeah.
that the eating his own children actually kind of fits if like the twisted version of our God because they would consider him bad. Obviously,
Well, they were
you know.
the sons of God, right? Angels,
Right,
you
right,
know, and
right.
he has forsaken them from their point of view. He's chosen humanity over them, so they're pretty hurt by that. So
Mhm,
they've painted him to be this cruel father figure who's practically eating them alive, you know. When really they were the rebellious ones who deserved it in a way, and obviously
mhm.
bound in chains instead, and they corrupted God's creation. So I wrote about a lot of this in my book, like how it seems like these
I was going to
parallel
say, so
stories.
how far along is the book?
I'm just finished up chapter 17. It's like a meaty section. Section 2 is all the history of like the
Uh-huh.
Freemasons, the secret society's involvement, the origins of clowns. So I've just been like seeped in this section for ages, but I'm coming out at the end of it now. Um,
How is this new revelation about the short season? How is this like playing with your mind about like, oh no, this book has got to be way longer.
no, I'm gonna keep it. I think it can stand alone without having to bring that up
Right.
because
Mm.
I'm just talking about an esoteric symbol. There's no need to get into the because luckily the Dark Ages, um, which would be the Millennial Reign, there's
Mhm.
not much to say on it because it's all
Right.
shrouded in mystery anyway.
Right.
So I
Nobody
can,
knows what happened.
yeah, so most of the history began in the 1600s. Surprise, surprise, you know
Yeah.
about the clown history. And then the only thing we have prior to that is about 500, 400 AD, just before the collapse of Rome, about the jesters there and the Sanios and the mimes. So that
Mhm.
gap of history is missing. Surprise, surprise, like I say.
Yeah.
So I
Mm.
don't have to bring it up or even speculate why it's missing. I'll just stick to the clown symbol and explain that. I might write a different book about all this in the future, maybe, but
Man, I was just gonna say, I was like, I know that you probably like everybody who's starting to look into this. It's like all the other things can kind of pale in comparison to this now, because it's like this is really if we're conspiracy theorists, well, this is the mother of all conspiracies right here, where it's like all the other ones are just little spokes in the wheel of this giant thing. And like I said, that's the funny part. It does actually make a lot of this make sense because
mhm,
I've been challenging people, and I'll probably say this tonight. I said, if you doubt the short season thing, give me explain the mud flood stuff to me. Explain that to me without this lens, because I think this is our answer to it.
mhm,
I don't know. I mean, obviously, I want to learn more about it, but I don't have to answer it any more than that. But I think you should be compelled to find an alternative explanation for the old world stuff.
mhm.
Because if you
No,
don't have it, I think that like to me, that's what I was saying. I had somebody else on there, and I said they hadn't looked into it, and I said, well, you have to look into. I mean, I think that I've tried to avoid certain topics, and then or just because I was researching other things, but I'm like, if this is one of the main reasons we believe that a money ring could have happened, well, give me another explanation. I'm willing to listen. And if you got, I was looking around. I was yesterday. I was just somebody in my comment section said they're from Brazil, and they said they we got all these old world stuff down there, and I remembered that. So I was like, I just got on like a little, just web search of like old world buildings, Mexico, Bolivia, Uruguay, and it's like you go name a country in South America that's obviously a poor country, and they all have them. Like all of them do,
mhm.
and that makes no sense.
Well, they probably couldn't afford to tear them down because they needed them still as well. You know, because they are, yeah.
Well, yeah, you wonder that because I was wondering this, and it's like, so this relationship that the United States has had with Cuba, obviously they're commies or whatever, but what everybody knows about Cuba, other than that, is that they have they're kind of set back in time, and like they got like a theater there, and they got so many buildings there, and of course they're all driving like 1950s vehicles. But like I kind of wonder, like, do you think that they wouldn't play ball and like burn down Havana? Like,
We don't know anymore. This is the problem with this theory. We kind of have to really revise a lot of things, even in modern history, that we've been told, and we have to reevaluate events we're being told that are happening and why they're really happening, because I've made a video about it. It changes everything. This changes
yeah.
everything. Like if it's true, but again,
No, I
no.
absolutely agree, because I was even looking at, and I know one of these content creators on TikTok did a video about this. Did you ever see the? I guess there was some classic, like some kind of famous post office in Manila in the Philippines.
I've not seen this one. No.
Well, it just burned. It just I don't know if I just caught fire this like over the summertime, and I mean like this place is huge. I mean it's a post office in the Philippines, and you're like, all right, like, is there a reason this needs to be like this huge? But I mean, it really is. It's like obviously these these satanic people obviously probably set fire to it. I mean, like you think these things wouldn't burn down easily the way they're built.
Oh, I'm looking at it now. Wow, it's typical Romanesque pillared pantheon.
Can you imagine that's
Yeah.
in the Philippines?
No, this looks like it belongs in Oxford in London or something.
It oh it
Um,
like I say, it makes no sense that it's there. And then of course it was getting burned down.
Naturally, but that's the fate of all of these things. Um, I mean, this thing I even looked into my own town, and we had an old town hall which burnt down in the 70s, or no, the 40s, I think it was, and was demolished finally, the remains of it in the 70s, and it was replaced with just an awful cubed office building thing. It's just disgusting. But you look at this old building that was in where I'm from, and it's beautiful. It's incredible, and it burnt down mysteriously one night in an unexplained way. And it's like, how does a stone building just burn down?
I've wondered that too, because it's like you think it would take more than just fire for these
Yeah.
things. It doesn't make sense. I mean, because you think about it, like even thinking about like the destruction of the temple by the Romans. Like I know that they just didn't burn it, because I mean it's like, yeah, it's made of stone, and it's like metals, copper, and and the like. And it's like, what? How else did they do? I mean, obviously, they had to do something to destroy it.
Hmm.
Of course, my theory now is I think some of the Josephus and Tacitus, they were actually writing that these armies in heaven were actually coming down upon there. And it actually going to make sense, because like supposedly the Romans actually dug up the foundations of the temple. And you're like, would they really do that? I mean, like, why would they do that?
Hmm.
I mean, God would do that because he said every stone's not gonna, there's not gonna be one stone left on the other one. But like, why would the Romans do that?
I want you to get together.